Om Ganatandasya Janatana Subhakaya Chakshusumritana Jena Charisma Sri Sri Chaitanya Manamustam Stapakam Dhanabhutale Sayam Shvanta Kapatubhyasya Sindhu Madhyacha Patitanam Brahmyo something from yesterday's class. Yes? Whatever Krishna does has a good result. Because he is the absolute good. Param Satyam. He is the absolute truth. And again, the final verse, the first verse of the Bhagavatam. Wow. I have something to give you back in return. We have one kind devotee, or several kind devotees, brought some honey. But it's not ordinary honey. It's honey from Israel. But it's not ordinary honey from Israel. It was collected by one Arab man, a Muslim Arab man. And when he found out that somehow or another he had an inspiration, when our devotee friend was coming to India, he said, bring it to them in India, they'll know what to do with it. Yes? So anyway, he's giving it to Adikeshwar, he knows what to do with it, he's going to give it to you, and you know what to do with it.
Bring that man in India.
Huh?
Bring that man in India.
Okay, that's your next assignment. You bring him to India. If not, please bring some honey.
You know what to do with it.
What will you? Anyway, you can tell me later. Okay, does anyone, anyway, it will be absolutely good. Yeah. Anyone remember anything? Thank you. Anyone remember anything else from yesterday's class?
Challenge Aristotle, why are you disturbing these inhabitants? Come, I'll fight with you.
Yeah, why are you standing so far away? Want to fight? Come close. Does anyone? Here's a really interesting question that I know you all know the answer to. How many times did Krishna kick Aristasura? Isn't it amazing how everyone will remember that? It's one of those things. Anyone remember anything else? One last remembrance. But it's on Subal or srila, some of the different acharyas. And when Aristasura roared, Krishna roared back. You'll be easy to kill. And indeed, he was. And after that, after Krishna killed Aristasura, he was like a thunderbolt when he killed Aristasura. But then, Krishna with Balaram triumphantly entered Vrindavan village. Because you have to think about what the scene must have been like, because everyone was terrified. The cows were terrified, the inhabitants were terrified, and the animals who never run from the village at night because they're afraid of wild animals such as tigers, yes, of course. Tigers and other wild creatures. They never run from the village at night, but out of fear of Aristasura, they all ran from the village at night. And they were terrified, and then Krishna killed the demon. And such a wonderful way. And then he just entered triumphantly. And he was the hero of Vrindavan, the Cynosure. Cynosure means the center of everyone's consciousness. Everything he does in such a wonderful way. So he triumphantly entered Vrindavan, and the inhabitants glorified him in Balaram with great jubilation, with great happiness. They couldn't stop thinking about Krishna. And did you see how Krishna rested his arm? And then Krishna laughed at this demon, and that angered him further. And then Sridham or Subal then laughed at him also, because when you know that if you have Krishna on your side, that everything is going to turn out right, and one is naturally fearless. Just like when we think of fearlessness, who do we think of? Who do you think of? Sorry, Srila Prabhupada. Were you with Prabhupada on that morning walk, famous morning walk by Victoria Memorial? Did you know that one? No, I was hoping you could tell it. Oh, I have the microphone. But Prabhupada, there was scaffolding. They said that how tall Victoria Memorial was. The devotees were walking with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was remembering that when he was a boy, when they were building Victoria Memorial, there was scaffolding around it. And Prabhupada said when he was young, he climbed to the top of it on the scaffolding. Did you know that? Have you seen Victoria Memorial in Calcutta? Did you ever climb to the top? So, and then one of the devotees said, "Oh, Prabhupada, you were so brave." And Prabhupada replied, "I still am brave. Otherwise, how could I have come to your country," meaning the United States, alone? Because imagine what that was like too. Like, Prabhupada was just 70 years old, and he had no money, practically speaking. He didn't know anyone in the whole country. And as the Prabhupada Lamrita says, that when he got off the boat, he did not know whether to turn left or right. And there he was, just with him and Krishna. And Krishna could take care of him. The result was so glorious. And again, we're all sitting here by the mercy of that glorious person, Srila Prabhupada, that brave person, Srila Prabhupada. And the system of becoming brave, and the only system of becoming brave in this world is what? Take shelter of Krishna. Is place oneself in Krishna's hands. Because otherwise, if we don't have the strength of faith and depth of realization to actually take shelter of Krishna's strength, whose strength are we going to rely on?
Maya.
On whose?
Maya.
Maya's strength. Well, our own strength is what I had in mind. Our own, whatever our power is, whether it's our strength, physical strength, or strength of intelligence, or strength of mind, or strength of the people we know, or the strength of our wealth, we'll rely on ourselves, and whatever we have, it's so small compared to the forces of material nature, they will crush us. So therefore, everyone inherently, naturally knows this. And everyone who relies on their own strength and appears to be confident is actually bluffing. Because the material energy is so powerful, and we are so insignificant. But the person who takes shelter of the most significant, he alone can actually be brave in this world. So therefore, a devotee, because he takes shelter of Krishna, he can wander in this world, practically speaking, fearlessly. Not fearlessly in the sense of doing foolish things, because we don't challenge the material nature. I'm fearless because I depend on Krishna, so I'll jump off a building or something like that. Nothing foolish like that. But in Krishna's service, we should depend upon Krishna. How often? Really continuously. And then we can be fearless. And that was the example that Srila Prabhupada showed us. And only a devotee can actually be fearless. And this is the third staya paratmanistam. This is the instruction of the Avanti Brahmana, that there is only one cause of difficulty and distress in this world, and that is one's own mind that takes shelter of the material energy. This one isn't the cause of my problem, this one isn't the cause of my problem, this situation. There's only one cause of the problems of this world, and it is our own rascal minds. This is the teachings of the Avanti Brahmana, and his conclusion was to surrender to Krishna. The concept, staya paratmanistam, by surrendering to the Paratma, the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, I will cross over this vast ocean of material existence. And it is a fearsome ocean. It is a fearsome ocean. The waves knock us from one side to another. And ultimately, there's death, which ultimately drowns everyone in that. No one survives. Since the beginning of time, people have been trying to avoid death. And how many survivors are there? There's none. So that means that no matter how old we are, we will all have our moment. And life means practice for that. Practice to become fearless by practicing life to take shelter of Krishna. So anyway, the great hero, Krishna, with Balaram, entered the village after killing Aristasura, and everyone glorified with great jubilation, because this jubilation means happiness, but it's at least one step above happiness. Yeah, it's one step below bliss. But it's somewhere. Huh? No, it's great happiness.
Exuberation?
Yeah, exuberance almost. But it's this unbounded happiness, practically speaking. And this reminds us of the first sentences that Prabhupada put in the Krishna book. Everyone in Vrindavan was remembering Krishna's pastimes and was constantly immersed in an ocean of transcendental bliss. So this was Vrindavan. So there was a disaster, Aristasura entered, then there was the triumph of Krishna, and everyone was jubilant. So what's going to happen next? The most sad, the beginning of the great sadness starts. Because it was after this incident. There was one more sentence. When a person performs some wonderful feat, wonderful activity, his kinsmen and relatives and friends naturally become jubilant. So what is the meaning of that? If the residents of Vrindavan, after seeing Krishna kill Aristasura in such a wonderful way, even uprooting his form, they became jubilant, and then Prabhupada says that the kinsmen and relatives and friends naturally become jubilant when they see some person perform a wonderful feat. That means what? It means that the residents of Vrindavan all had this natural intimacy in their relationship with Krishna. That everything that Krishna did wonderfully, they experienced because of the mamata, the feeling of he is ours. He is my village friend. He is my friend. He is my son. He is my lover. They all had this full identification with Krishna. So with every wonderful thing that Krishna did, they felt jubilant. And on the other hand, is someone who is inimical or envious of Krishna or anyone in this world, and when that person gets success, you feel miserable. So it's obvious which side we should align ourselves with, or the one who is infallible, who doesn't fail in his great wondrous deeds. But it was after this incident that the great sage Narada disclosed to Kamsa the secret of Krishna. Narada Muni is generally known as Deva Darshana, which means that he can be seen only by demigods or persons on the same level with the demigods. And all Deva Darshana means that Deva is also a name of Krishna. Did you know that? Now you do. There you go. If anyone didn't know it before, you know it now. It means, like, one of the meanings of Deva is the effulgent. So Krishna is so effulgent, he is known as Deva. And also Deva means he's the primal demigod, in that sense, the Adidevata. So, because Narada Muni can see Krishna, he is also called Deva Darshan, because he has darshan of Krishna, and he's also on these names as well. So Narada Muni could actually, that Kamsa was able to see Narada Muni, who is extraordinary, and usually someone on the level, demonic level like Kamsa couldn't see him. But Narada visited Kamsa, who is not at all on the level of the demigods, and allowed Kamsa to see him. So by his grace, he allowed Kamsa to see him, and he acted in a friendly way to Kamsa. Why? Because he wanted Kamsa to believe his words, because we tend to believe the words of those who appear friendly to us. But though he was actually Kamsa's enemy, in the sense that he was facilitating the death of Kamsa. So he was acting as Kamsa's friend, but actually was his enemy. But actually he was his friend, because to be killed by Krishna is extraordinary. It's wonderful in the sense that he was always thinking of Krishna in such an inimical way, but he gained Sarupya Mukti because of that, because Krishna killed him. And this is a facility Srila Jiva Goswami describes in Bhakti Sangobha, that it's only when the Krishna avatar or Krishna kills a demon that he is actually liberated. Even other incarnations, killed by that incarnation, they don't get that result. So it's a funny thing to say, but it's a great fortune to be killed by Krishna. So Kamsa also saw Krishna, what to speak of Narada Muni. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point, and this point answers a question that I always ask: why doesn't Krishna just make it easier? I secretly ask that, so don't tell anyone. Why does he just make it easier? Why can't he just bring us to Goloka Vrindavan, and I bring my camera with me and I could take some really good pictures too and show everyone, guess where I've been? You haven't been there? Oh, it's really great. I've been there. But this really, the Kamsa saw Krishna, what to speak of Narada Muni. This answers the question of why we just can't be in Goloka Vrindavan. Prabhupada explains, but unless one sees the Lord or his devotees with purified eyes, one cannot derive the actual benefit of being in the place. Because again, Kamsa saw Krishna, but his heart was so filled with... But what? Fear, yes. Kamsa's speciality was that he was terrified of Krishna. And who was the personification of envy of Krishna? Shishupala. Yes. So, he couldn't see Krishna. Kaliya saw Krishna on one level, but on another level he couldn't see Krishna because his eyes were filled with such an envious mentality. He looked at Krishna and Krishna jumped from the what kind of tree? Kadamba. Raise your hand if you've seen that tree. Raise your hand if you haven't seen that tree. Chinya. Como? Você como say como? Obviously not. I didn't put that on my accents. Where are you from? From Thailand. Okay, wrong language. Excuse me. But very close to here, within easy walking distance, there's the very tree, very, very old tree that Krishna touched with his lotus feet. And he climbed that tree and he jumped into the Yamuna River to chastise Kaliya. Now one question could be asked. So that tree you can actually see. It's right on the Parikrama hall. Oh, good. One of the devotees would be so happy to take you to see that tree. But there's an interesting question comes in this regard. Krishna was with the cowherd boy, and he had just brought them back to life with his merciful glance. But then he was going to climb the tree, the Kadamba tree, to jump into the Yamuna, which was filled with poison, and Kaliya was in there. Now, how did the boys allow him to do that? Did you ever consider that? How would they let him do that? Go there alone? They knew that Kaliya, this horrible, ferocious snake, was in there. And our acharyas explained that Krishna said, I'm just going up this tree right now because this tree, Garuda had hid some amrita, some nectar there, and I want to see if there's any left. Because this is an old Puranic pastime. So then Krishna climbed up the tree, but he actually wasn't telling the truth. He had a different plan. He climbed the tree, and then he tightened his belt, put his hair back, and then he jumped into the water of the Yamuna. And then he made, even though Krishna was so young and delicate, it made a huge splash. I can't remember how many bow lengths the river flooded back. Do you remember? Too many. So many. Yes? But it flooded back when Krishna jumped in. And Kaliya could understand that someone has come to challenge me. So he went right in front of Krishna, immediately rushed there, and then he looked at Krishna. And he saw Krishna was so beautiful. He saw the beauty of Krishna, but then he tried to bite Krishna immediately on his chest. So as long as one's attitude or one's consciousness has envy of Krishna or false ego, or in the mood of false ego makes us in the mood of competitor with Krishna, then one cannot see Krishna even though one sees Krishna. One cannot be in Goloka Vrindavan even though one is in Goloka Vrindavan. Because it's a matter of consciousness. So the residents of Vrindavan, their consciousness was completely aligned with Krishna. Continuously, naturally, fully, spontaneously, due to their love for Krishna. And therefore, everything that Krishna did that was wonderful, there was not the slightest trace of envy there. So if we want to be with Krishna, we have to remove envy from our heart. That means surrender. That's the process. The Krishna I am yours. So, Kamsa, but unless one sees the Lord or his devotee with purified eyes, one cannot derive the actual benefit. What do you think about that sentence? I mean, it has such depth of meaning. Unless one sees the Lord or his devotees with purified eyes. What does purified eyes mean? Purified consciousness, or at least a consciousness that is not filled with envy, appreciative, positive. Unless one has that, one cannot derive the actual benefit. So how does that make you feel? Huh? Yeah. How wonderful. How wonderful. But it points to what the problem is. The heart is not pure. Of course, anyone who associates with a pure devotee derives imperceptible benefit. In other words, by being in Krishna's association with the chanting of the holy name, being in the association of exalted devotees, even if one's consciousness is not pure, one will get benefit, even if one cannot perceive that benefit. Or the benefit will accrue and increase over time. And this is called agyata sukriti, that one actually is getting punya, or spiritual benefit, but it's agyata. One is not aware of it. In other words, one might not be perceiving it, but yet the benefit is there. One cannot understand how he's making progress, yet he makes progress by seeing the devotee of the Lord. Narada Muni's mission was to finish. Now here's the answer to the question why Narada Muni did this. He's telling Kamsa the secret about Krishna, and what that secret is from here. But he's saying that this boy Krishna is the one that was supposed to kill you. And all along, he's been in Vrindavan, and every asura, every demon, all your friends and associates that you've sent to kill Krishna, he and Balaram, they have killed them. And he is Vasudev's son. He is the one who is the omen, the voice in the sky, the Akashvani, has said is going to kill. Now Narada Muni is doing this. And he's on the side of the David, he's on the side of Krishna. And yet, he's speaking to Kamsa in this way and telling this secret. Now one naturally asks the question, why is he doing that? And Prabhupada answers that Narada Muni's mission was to finish things quickly. That means Kamsa's death. Narada Muni also knew, and this is where the sadness comes, that it is time for Krishna to end his Vrindavan Lila. The wonderful pastimes of Vrindavan. It was time for Krishna to end them. He was going to leave. That time had come. The residents of Vrindavan were floating continuously in an ocean of ecstasy because of Krishna's wonderful deeds, because of his beauty, because of his ways of dealing. They were always tadiya with him. Tadiya means they were always in relationship with him in a favorable way. So again, what was wonderful about Krishna, they were experiencing his ecstasy. Everything and Krishna was continuously doing wonderful things. And now the time for Krishna to be seen every day in their village was nearing its end. Narada Muni is doing this because, first of all, he knows that the Vrindavan Lila is over. It's time for it to be over. And that occurs. He has to be the one to remind Krishna, and this happens in the next chapter, to remind Krishna that now it is time to perform your pastimes outside of Vrindavan. And he does it in a very clever way, because he can't say you have to leave Vrindavan, but he says it's time to perform your pastimes. You will do this, you will do that, you will kill this demon, you will kill that demon outside of Vrindavan. He does that in a secret place, a private place. So, and also, it was time for Kamsa to be killed, and this is the point that Prabhupada is stressing here. Narada Muni's mission was to finish things quickly. Kamsa was terrorizing the people of Vrindavan. He was terrorizing the Yadu dynasty. They all had fled, almost all of them had fled from Mathura. And now, Krishna appeared in order to kill the demons, and Kamsa was the chief among them. And Narada wanted to expedite or quicken things. And therefore, he immediately approached Kamsa with all the real information. You are to be killed by the 8th son of Vasudeva, Narada Muni said. Narada told Kamsa. And that 8th son is Krishna. You were misled by Vasudeva into believing that the 8th issue of Vasudeva was a daughter. Actually, that daughter was born to Yashoda, the wife of Nanda Maharaj, and Vasudeva exchanged his son for the daughter. So you were misled. Kamsa was naturally fearful and angry. And now Narada Muni is increasing his anger. And with that, the fuel of his anger is going to call Krishna to Mathura to have him killed. And that will mean the death of Kamsa. So he's saying, you were misled by Vasudeva. He's cheated you. He's tricked you. He's hidden the cause of your death in a place where you wouldn't find him. He has cheated you. Krishna is the son of Vasudeva, as is Balaram. And being afraid of your atrocious nature, atrocious, ferocious, nasty, terrible, ferocious nature, Vasudeva has tactfully hidden them in Vrindavan, out of your sight. Narada further informed Kamsa, Krishna and Balaram have been living incognito in disguise in the care of Nanda Maharaj, and all the Asuras, your companions, who were sent to Vrindavan to kill different children, they were all killed by Krishna and Balaram, the same one who has been prophesied to be the cause of your death. As soon as Kamsa got this information from Narada Muni, he took out his sharp sword to kill, and prepared to kill Vasudeva. Vasudeva wasn't present at this time, but immediately Kamsa pulled out his sword to kill him. And then Narada pacified him with the same logic. Pacified me? What? Made him peaceful. Calmed his mind down. He was violently, with his sword ready. The same mood that he was in that caused all this problem. When he was driving the chariot of Vasudeva and Devaki on the day of their wedding, in such a wonderful mood, his beloved sister was getting married. But as soon as he heard that his own situation was going to be threatened, that the 8th child of Devaki, the 8th Garba, the 8th womb, the 8th embryo, like that, he immediately pulled out his sword and was ready to kill her, because this is the nature of a demon. Is that anything that stands, anyone, any situation, any person who stands in the way of me and my plans, I will kill them. It's directly described in the Bhagavad Gita. Divine and demoniac nature. What chapter? 16. Ishwaram Mahabhogi Siddham Balavan. I am perfect. I am the control. And I will control and I will enjoy. And if you get in my way, you are my enemy. I mean, things haven't changed. So, he was prepared to kill Vasudeva for his duplicity. Of course, Kamsa was never duplicitous at all. He didn't steal the kingdom from his Udaseina or anything like that, and he Putana sent to kill everyone. Now that he was completely innocent, never did anything wrong, but he was very upset that Vasudeva had cheated him. But Narada said, you are not to be killed by Vasudeva, and this is what Vasudeva pacified Kamsa with at the time of the wedding. He said, why are you so anxious to kill him? Better try to kill Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna Katha also adds some more things that he said. He said that if you kill Vasudeva right now, then Nanda Maharaj and Krishna and Balaram are going to hear about this. And then they will flee far away and you will never find them. Better to be clever. And instead of driving them away by killing Vasudeva, but make a very clever plan to attract Krishna and Balaram to come to Mathura. Use your diplomatic skills to attract Krishna and Balaram to come to Mathura. And when they come to Mathura, there you can have them killed. Very easily. That was his mood. And this is Narada telling him these things. Why not kill Krishna and Balaram? Now, one may also wonder, that how did Vasudeva feel about this Devaki? But actually later on in the 11th canto, they glorify Narada because they were so thankful. Because of this plan that Narada had begun, Krishna and Balaram returned to them and acted as their son. And because of this plan, of course, Kamsa was killed as well. So Kamsa, in order to satisfy his wrath means anger. He arrested Vasudeva and his wife and shackled them in iron chains. And acting on the new information, now Kamsa is going to begin his plan making. He immediately called for the Keshi demon and asked him to go to Vrindavan immediately to kill Balaram and Krishna. And that's how the next chapter is going to begin. Remember, he had his last ultimate friend weapons were Aristasura, who had just been killed, and Casey. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami, he mentions that after Aristasura was killed, Kamsa called for Keshi, and Keshi told him, why are you making unnecessarily making enemies? Meaning with Krishna. Krishna hasn't done anything to you, and you're sending people to kill him, and now you're sending me to kill him too. So, and when Kamsa heard that from Keshi, he just sent him home. And he didn't send anyone to kill anyone in Vrindavan for 1 year. That's how Srila Goswami describes it. But then when this happened, after Narada Muni came, he immediately called for Keshi. And there's some interesting Sanskrit words that Prabhupada translates here. He asked Keshi to kill Krishna, but he was actually, as Prabhupada explains here, Kamsa asked Keshi to go to Vrindavan to be killed by Krishna and Balaram and thus get salvation. Then, so that was the first plan, send Keshi to Vrindavan. Then Kamsa called for his expert elephant trainers, as well as for the wrestlers, Chanura, Mastika, Sal, Toshal, etc. And he told them, my dear friends, try to hear me attentively. At Nanda Maharaj's place in Vrindavan, there are two brothers, Krishna and Balaram. They're actually two sons of Vasudeva. As you know, I have been destined to be killed by Krishna. There's a prophecy, a prediction to this effect. Now I'm requesting you to arrange for a wrestling match. a wrestling match as a great festival. And we'll have such a wonderful festival. People from different parts of the country will come to see the festival. And I will arrange to get those two boys here. And you will try to kill them in the wrestling arena. Bring them here, just invite them to come, and he's going to very soon send a kura to invite Krishna and Balaram to come for the great festival. And because Krishna and Balaram are famous for their wrestling skills, because they wrestle with the cowherd boys in the fields every day, because boys will be boys. So therefore everyone knows that Krishna and Balaram are good wrestlers. So let them come and enjoy the great festival, and maybe they can also enter into the wrestling ring and show their skills with some of the other wrestlers. And he's telling Sanira, and when we lure them in, we will kill them, crush them, because they were huge, powerful wrestlers. These were just delicate boys. So this is part of his friend, and he called for also the elephant Kuvalaya Pita, the trainer of the elephant. He placed him right outside the wrestling ring. Interesting, when Krishna and Balaram killed the elephant and entered the wrestling arena and stood before Kamsa, their mood was, if you're so powerful, why do you have to place an elephant out there to kill us? You're nothing. And then they were carrying the two tusks from the elephant. Pushed them into the ground right in front of the dais where Kamsa was sitting. And then they turned their back on Kamsa. They're so expert, aren't they? They're so expert. They do everything in such a wonderful way. And he continues. Prabhupada explains, wrestling matches are still enjoyed by people in northern India. Are there any northern Indians here? We will wrestle with dham. We're all in North India, so we will all enjoy it. I'm a little angry. Did the brahmacharis wrestle sometimes? Very gentle. And it appears from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that 5,000 years ago, wrestling was also popular. Kamsa planned to arrange such a wrestling competition and invite people to visit. He also told the trainers of the elephants, be sure to bring the elephant named Kuvalaya Pita and keep him at the gate of the wrestling arena. Try to capture Krishna and Balaram on their arrival and have the elephant kill them. Kamsa also advised his friends to arrange to worship Lord Shiva by offering animal sacrifices and performing the sacrifice called the Dana Yajna, and the sacrifice performed on the 14th day of the moon, known as the Chaturdasi. This date falls 3 days after Ekadasi, and it is set aside for the worship of Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada had to explain to us that the Chaturdasi comes 3 days after the Ekadasi. The 11th, 14th day comes 3 days after the 11th day. And actually, in the first letter I wrote to Prabhupada, I asked him, why do we fast on Ekadasi? And you know what his answer was? Because it's the 11th day of the moon. read the end of this paragraph. No, I'll stop here. Okay, thank you very much. Now it's time to go see Srila Prabhupada, Krishna Balaram, Sisi Gorantai, Sisi Radha.